Okay, we are drawing and painting a beautiful flower, and we are inspired by the artist Georgia O'Keeffe. We're going to start in the middle of the paper with a circle. And I decided to use a square format for this. So this is about 8.5 by 8.5 inches on a nice drawing paper. And I'm going to make smaller circles inside this circle. So you would draw with pencil first in case you make a mistake, but the pencil does not show up well on the video, so it's best for me to draw with a permanent Sharpie. And I'm just going to go around this one more time just to make it a little thicker. Okay, and then I'm going to make triangles or a zigzag going all the way around my center circle. And then I'm going to make curves or bumps like hills going around that. And these aren't going to be perfectly even. We'll just do our best. Then I'm going to draw lines that come out for the petals of the flower. Now these go off the page, so these do not meet together. I'm going from middle circle out to the ends of the paper. Because Georgia O'Keeffe made enlarged flowers, very large, larger than they would be in real life, and she often zoomed in on them, close-up view of part of the flower instead of making the whole flower. So then I'm going to go over my lines a little bit darker and making them thicker. Now, not every single spot of the paper will be darker, but I'm going to try to go over most of the lines. And when you use marker or crayons to, black crayon or permanent marker, to go over your lines, you're going to want to make sure you cover up your pencil, because when we see that pencil line, it just doesn't look like the artwork is finished. So in the description below the video, I will put in some links to some stories and some videos about the artist that would be appropriate and also very interesting and fun to read. I was thinking that it might be fun to read The Empty Pot by Demi, because some of the children grew flowers in their pots in that story. I thought it might also be interesting to read The Tiny Seed by Eric Carle. So when I do these lines, I'm kind of making them a little bit wavy along the edges of my petals. I just think that looks more interesting than doing them following the same curve. I feel like if I make it a little bit off, it makes the lines more interesting to look at. And there's also a cute story called My Name is Georgia by Jeanette Winter. That is a nice story to read about the artist. And if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, I would so appreciate it. At this point, I am trying to get to 1,000 subscribers. That's my goal. All right. Then down at the bottom, I forgot I'm going to write my name. Okay. So you can use regular watercolor paints to paint this in. I'm actually going to use the watercolor crayons. These are by Sargent. And I used yellow in the center. And I used some orange around that. And so when I'm coloring with these, I don't really need to like fill in all the white spaces, because the when you add water to the picture, it will spread it out. And so the permanent marker should not spread. It should be fine. Let's see, and I use some blue. And I kind of left some white spaces at the ends of my petals. My daughter said she liked that because it was showing like a highlight. So I'm going to try to do that again. So one of the fun things about using these watercolor crayons is blending the colors. And certainly you can blend colors with regular watercolor paints too. You just need to make sure that you clean out your brush in between colors when you are using watercolor paints, or really any paints. You want to make sure that you're always cleaning out your brush when you switch colors, because you don't want those colors mixing in your palette. You just want to mix on your paper. Okay, unless you have a separate palette where you're doing mixing. But again, taking from the tray, you always want to clean out that brush. So I'm going to blend in a little bit of purple along the edge of my blue. And then in my background, I did a little bit of red in between. And I did also a little bit of orange. So some of my orange is overlapping right on the red, and then some of my orange is just going over the white part of the paper. All right, then I am ready to use my water, and I've got two different brushes. Probably the smaller brush will be easier since this is a smaller painting. And I'm going to clean out my brush after I spread out the yellow. Now I'm switching to the orange. So it's nice how the watercolor crayons just sort of blend out. And they look just like paint, just by adding a little bit of water. So I'm trying not to get my blue paint mixed in with my orange paint, because that'll kind of give me that like greenish color I got over there, and I don't really want that. Sometimes there are happy accidents when colors start to blend together, but for this project I didn't really want that. Alright, I cleaned out my brush really well, and for my red and orange background, I went right up to the edge of the paper for that. So if your brush is too watery when you're trying to paint and you're having trouble like controlling where the paint is going, just move your brush along the inside of the cup, and that will get the extra water off. So for bigger areas, you might want to use a bigger paintbrush. But so far, I don't mind using this little one. It can work pretty quickly, even on the bigger areas. So if you find that you don't have enough of the crayon colored in a certain spot and it's just too much white on the paper, you can always go back and add some more of the crayon and then add water and blend it. I would recommend, though, probably waiting till it dries a little bit if you feel that you need to add a little bit more. And sometimes when your paints dry, they dry a little bit differently than they look when they're wet. So your colors might change a little bit as your painting dries. So good luck with yours. I hope it turns out just beautifully for you and that you enjoy this process and learning a little bit about Georgia O'Keeffe's artwork as you go.